New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so glad you're here. Welcome. Welcome to Who Do You Think You Are? This is a podcast dedicated to helping you learn how to have the highest regard for yourself, how to live from a place of self-respect and self-love, and how to make yourself a priority in your own life. Meet me here each week for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we approach life in this way, we naturally and organically and effortlessly have more room, more generosity, and more love for one another. And friends, isn't that what the world needs now more than ever? I am so glad you're with me on this evening. And today I have a very, very interesting guest, a very special guest, and a guest that is very close to my heart. Today, I'm having a conversation with the person who is my life partner, my confidant, and the woman who I would see for psychotherapy in a heartbeat. Would you please help me welcome my partner in crime, my love of my life, Dawn Freed. Dawn,
hello.
welcome.
Hello. Nice to see you, Catherine.
Great to see you, Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Great to see you. So, people who know you know this, and people who know me, but I don't think our audience knows this. You and I have been working together for decades.
Decades.
Right? We share a practice. We share a home. We are doggy mommies to Gabriella. And we really have a lot of close proximity going on, don't we?
We sure do.
Right. And I always lose count. I guess I could go back to the year we met, but we've been together for, I'm always off by 1 year.
I think in September, it'll be 44 years.
44 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
And we don't look too bad for worse for the wear. No.
I think we can say that. I think we can say that. So you and I met the very first day of graduate school at Rutgers University at a wine and cheese gathering that neither of us wanted to go to.
Right.
Right? Remember that?
But I guess destiny had something else in mind.
Well, I remember driving home, and this was before the term, came into popularity. I remember driving home on the Garden State Parkway. I remember thinking, I met someone who's going to be in my life for the rest of my life. I met my soulmate. Mm-hmm. Isn't that something? Did I ever tell you that?
Maybe once along the 44 years.
All right. Well, you had to hear it here.
Yeah.
And I think we've been together because, I have to say, because you're an angel and because we've done a lot of work on ourselves, haven't we?
That we have.
Right? We've
And
worked.
that, if that's one message to get across that I share with my clients, it's ongoing. It's not like a one and done kind of thing. So yes, we have done a lot of work on ourselves.
and we've worked on the relationship,
Yes.
and we still do,
Yes. It,
right? And we probably always will.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's in our blood, first of all, but yes.
Well, that's interesting that you phrase it that way, because people ask me all the time, how did you come to be a therapist? Was it, did you always know, or did you have someone who influenced you, or is there some interesting origin story there? So maybe we could start there.
Okay.
We cover several decades in the time we have. How did you come to this work as a therapist?
Well, I would say that the earliest beginnings, which I didn't have an awareness of at the start, was the role I played in my family of origin. I was very much the mediator, the in-between person, trying to soothe, calm the stormy waters at home. And that role, which I gravitated towards, was also, I think, cultivated, certainly by my parents in a way, to sort of navigate the rough times. So it began then, but I didn't know the role that it would play until later, when as a teenager and a young adult, I always had a real curiosity and a wonder about what makes human behavior happen the way it does, what makes people tick. And so when I went off to college, after having a psychology class in high school, I began as an anthropology major, then a sociology major.
I forgot.
And then
Actually, I forgot. It's nice to be
been a
reacquainted.
progression, right? And then psychology.
I see.
So that's what my bachelor's degree is in.
I see. So in terms of your education, that's how you came to your work.
Right.
In retrospect, it was really, you might say, an extension of the role that you played in your family?
Yes, I think an extension in the sense of, while I always had the interest, and I obviously stepped into or fell into the role as a child, as I got just a little older, it was like, oh, you mean I can study this? I can understand it more. And so I think that led me on the path of the learning, the official learning. And as I did that, I had the awareness, the insight of like, oh, okay, I see where this started for me back in childhood.
It's the same for me, only different. It's the same in that I too had a class in high school. I went to a Catholic high school, and the nun who taught my health class introduced a chapter in the health book. It was on neuroses. And shall we say, it resonated with me?
Yes.
I was hooked. Now, as a little girl, a little girl in elementary school, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. When I grew up, my parents gave me a doctor's bag, and I would always be doctoring my parents, taking their temperature and all of that. But when I got to high school, and I had this course, I learned that there was a doctor who asked you how you felt. A doctor who asked you how you felt. And I'll tell you, I can almost remember the day when I said, this is for me. This is for me. But like you, in retrospect, I realized that there were some things in my background, and I dealt with them by saying, I'm going to, in one way or another, in kid language, I'm going to push those feelings aside, concentrate on the needy kids. There were kids in my class who I thought came from tough backgrounds. And I thought if I could talk about their problems, I realized looking back, I didn't have to talk about my own.
Yeah.
And so that is the inner and the outer, dimension of how I came to
And
this.
and it's a mask origin story for both of us, right? I mean,
Yes, yes,
mhm.
yes. And I realized looking back, and I don't know, people might find this interesting. It's a profession in which, if one wanted to or wasn't aware of themselves, one could really hide in this profession, don't you
Oh,
think?
absolutely.
Right? Because the whole idea of therapist is to be, or traditional psychotherapist, right, is to be kind of a tabula rasa, a neutral,
Blank slate.
a
Yeah.
blank slate. And in so doing, we can hide out. But you and I don't work that way.
Not at this point, no. Over the years, the decades of being in the profession, I've taken on what is essentially important, that is traditional, but also allowed myself to be a little bit more freed up and authentic to who I am.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How you progressed, if you want to use that word, progressed? I think it is a progression. Even though many people still practice in that very traditional way where they're the blank slate, and there's really an art to that, and it takes a long time to perfect that neutrality. But you and I were exposed to other ways of working. Incidentally, we had the exact same training.
Yes, we did.
Graduate school and postgraduate school, and we taught at the same institute. So how would you say that you morphed into the kind of therapy?
Evolved into.
Evolved, a much better word. Yes. How did you evolve into this more authentic, more present kind of therapist?
And that's a perfect word, I think. Present. Not that the traditional therapist isn't present, but they're a blank slate, as you said. And so for me, as I went through my own years of working on myself, I gradually found my own voice more and more. And by voice, I mean, who am I? What are my values? How do I relate to people? And how can I integrate that into my work and maintain the integrity of being a good therapist, but be more true to also who I am? And so and I think you probably relate to this as well, when I speak to a prospective client, or to a new client, I will tell them that my way of working is a partnership. I am not a blank slate. I will listen and engage with you and ask questions or point things out, because it is a partnership. I'm going to lend my knowledge and my strengths, but as the client, you're going to give me the map. I mean, I need to have the map of who you are, and I'll help you discover it and I'll help you navigate it. So very much a partnership. So that's one piece that changed, very much so, that I am very actively involved in my sessions.
How about the role of disclosure, self-disclosure? This is really one of the differences, I think, in our
Style. Yeah.
our style. Could you speak to that? Because I know you utilize self-disclosure.
I do. And I find it extremely valuable. And I think my clients do as well. That's the feedback I've gotten. That the whole area of self-disclosure in therapy, I think, I'm going to say it's more recent, like modern times kind of therapy. The past couple of decades, certainly that's where I was first introduced to it, in sort of a postgraduate training
Mhm.
in the institute that we both went to. And so I delved into it gingerly, because you always want to be aware of where you're overstepping, you're sharing too much, where you're making it a little bit more about yourself than the client. But to use discernment and a judicious approach to share who I am, what my experience in life has been,
Mhm.
in the right time, at the right place, in the process of someone's therapy, I think opens them up more. The trust is deepened. The
Mm.
rapport is deepened.
Mhm.
So I find the self-disclosure piece important and valuable.
Mhm. Yeah, I do too. We were taught, you and I, in the beginning, not to reveal anything about
Anything.
ourselves, and there are reasons for that, right? Um, but I think we learned that by allowing ourselves to be open with clients relative to maybe aspects of our own journey,
Mm-hmm.
maybe conflicts that we've had, I I think it allows the client to know that we are, likewise, we have dealt with struggles.
Yes.
We have felt overwhelmed. We felt at a loss. We have felt, grief stricken, sad, lonely, et cetera, et cetera. We have basically experienced everything that our clients are experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think when they know that, you're right. I think they can feel like, okay, I know this person, and if she can do it and she's asking and encouraging me to do it, then maybe I can. Right?
As I'm hearing you, I'm thinking, it really, to me, does bring an element of a greater safety,
Mm,
that client feels like, I'm getting to know a little bit about who you are. So you're not just asking me to open up and, bare my soul, but I'm getting some appropriate boundaries, of course, but I'm getting some indication of who you are.
right,
And that helps me feel safer and more open.
right, right. And just to be especially clear, I like your word discernment. We do not talk about ourselves because we're having a bad day. We don't talk about ourselves because we feel like venting. It's nothing like that at all, right? It's
Right.
very strategically done, and it's with the express purpose of showing the client that we understand experientially. We understand where that person is coming from, what that person is dealing with.
Yes.
We know what it's like to feel a certain way.
And we also share the process of moving through that, or when it's hard to move through it, and not to establish a sense of, well, I've done it, so therefore, but that it is a process, and it can require a few rounds and, a few iterations. That goes back to what I said a little earlier, about sharing with my clients that I still work on myself. And yes, some of that is because I deeply value what that is about. I feel like that's part of why we're even here, to evolve into our better selves, to step into our higher selves. So the process of examining myself isn't always because I'm having a problem, but at the same time, I don't have a problem reaching for help, asking for help, and getting that kind of guidance and support if I am having a hard time.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that occurs to me is it's very important to me, and I know it's important to you, and you said it before, that the way we work, we view our relationship with our clients as a partnership, as a collaboration. And so there's not really a hierarchy of we are superior or we have the answers. We're not distant note
Right.
takers, right? We are allies, and we are partners
Mhm.
with a common goal. And the goal is to help the client get where the client wants to go, and often beyond where they even know is possible for themselves.
Mhm. Yes, very
Right?
much so.
Right. And
Yeah.
it makes work very gratifying, doesn't it?
It's very gratifying, and it's reminding me of a client long ago who had a dream in the midst of our work where there had been an accident, and he and I was like the detective, the investigator, and he was alongside me as we sort of assessed the wreckage.
Mm.
And I find that to be still a meaningful analogy, a meaningful metaphor, of yes, there is an investigating going on, a detective work process going on,
Mm.
but the client has to provide the information, whatever they know, or.
Well, because the client really has all the data.
Right, exactly. They may not think so, but yes.
Well, it's our role to bring it out, right?
Yes.
I always say, I don't have a lot of answers, but I certainly have a lot of good questions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's how we were taught to elicit the information that is within our clients that
Yes.
that they're not consciously aware of, right? That's the whole point.
This is making me think about to the very beginning when we were in graduate school and in our internships, and I was, rattled by the fact that I don't know anything. What am I doing working with people? Of course, under supervision. But then when I graduated and went into officially working, that issue of I don't have to know it all, that was not something that I, in an instance, was able to adapt to, but I did get it as I worked in the early stages of my career of like, I can't possibly.
I know
And-
exactly what you're talking about,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We were told it's okay not to know, but we
Mhm.
also objected. How could we not know?
You're
have
coming to me.
You're coming to me. I thought there were clients were coming to me for some kind of answer.
Mhm.
And I experienced a pressure of, I have to know. But really, I have found the most valuable conversations with clients actually allowing myself to join them in the, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you should do next, but let's just sit together and be with what it feels like to not know, or
Right.
to not, we'll go in search of your next step, but right now let's just be present to the fact that you don't know, and that's okay that you don't know.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right? There's a lot of possibilities in the I don't know, in the unknown.
Mhm.
Right?
Very much so.
The more we're talking, the more I'm fascinated by what we do, I have to say. Now, you know what? I can't believe it. I had to do a double take. We're about halfway through the hour. Why don't we take a short break?
Okay.
When we come back, I'd like to ask you about how you integrate spirituality into your work, and what you do when you feel helpless with a client.
Helpless?
Helpless with a client, if you ever feel that way.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's take a short.
Okay.
Okay, so think about that. We'll take a short break. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I'm your host, Catherine Duca, and I'm with my life partner, dear friend, and therapist extraordinaire, Dawn Freed.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Come back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Welcome to the Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together. Join us for a truly bilingual retreat experience on the shores of the beautiful Lake Chapala, Mexico. July 22nd through July 26th, 2025, at the Hotel Villa Monte Carlo in Jalisco, Mexico. Featuring Reverend Jeffrey Ryan, Dr. Jose de Lira Sosa, Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, Reverend Dr. John Waterhouse, and Reverend Dr. David Bruner. Registration is now open, and payment plans are available. Simply visit www.conventionoftheamericas.com. Come be part of a transformative gathering with powerful presentations, workshops, networking time, and just good old relaxing and connecting. Plus, you can learn more about the science of mind and how to live this powerful philosophy in your life. Transform your life at Convention of the Americas 2025, Rising Together.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are in the midst of a conversation. I am with my life partner and my all-time favorite psychotherapist, Dawn Freed. And we're talking about how we got involved in this work as psychotherapists, some of the challenges of this work, what makes it so gratifying. And before we went to break, Dawn, I asked you to tell our listeners how you began to incorporate spirituality into your work and what that means to you. And do you talk about spirituality explicitly with your clients?
Okay.
That's kind of a mouthful. You could.
Yes, right. You might need to remind me of the part B
Sure.
as we go along.
Sure.
Spirituality. Well, I in my graduate training, social work takes the entire person, the ecosystem of the person into account. Their family, their community, their religious beliefs, everything, right? Into understanding that person.
Pardon me, Dawn. Yeah, we should say our degrees are in clinical social work. We have an MSW degree, and we're licensed clinical social workers. So, so our training differs from that of psychologists in that we are taught to take the whole person, a holistic view, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the beginning, I think, of my spirituality and work relationship. Personally, I've been on my own journey spiritually. I started off being raised in a very traditional Catholic upbringing, but my father was Jewish and had converted to Catholicism, but he was Jewish. So my respective extended families were Catholic and Jewish. And so along the way, it became evident to me that, this was my experience, that it could be divisive. Religion could be divisive. It could separate people rather than bring them together.
Yeah.
And so in my exploration, I came to this notion of spirituality and how much more inclusive that is, because it's not tied to a particular dogma or principle. It is about recognizing that we're all part of one big web of humanity. And even though there may be differences in certain respects, at our core, we're all human beings. We're all part of this human experience. So I began to explore for my own purposes and benefit different spiritual belief systems, everything from Native American to Buddhism to nature, to understand that it's really quite broad, inclusive, and I think just about anyone and everyone can find a place within that broad spirituality spectrum. What it does for me and what I bring to my work with it is that when we're faced with struggles and challenges, I find it is a strength, something to turn towards, and to find meaning, to find clarity of meaning. So I do talk to my clients about that, and I also connect it to spirituality and religion can as well. Resilience, hope, and healing.
Yeah.
So I think it holds a lot of support, a lot of answers, a lot of meaning about our, let's say, existential experience as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a start to the answer.
Yeah. It's reminding me of how I came to the beginning of my own spiritual journey and how I began to incorporate it into my work. Actually, it came from a client. One of my earliest clients, in the early days of my career, we had a successful treatment and we were terminating. Now, termination, don't you think we need a different word?
Yes, we do.
Right? But termination refers to the end, the ending of therapy, which ideally, if you've been working with someone for a while, you don't want the end to come abruptly. Well, okay, last week was my last session. Have a nice life, right? You want it to be a planned ending. So it's called a planned termination. And there we were. And she said something to me that was so profound. She said, well, Kathy, she said two things, actually. She said, now the therapy is over. I've had to get, and this will date the whole thing, I've had to get a new address book. What do you mean? Well, the people I was attracted to and the people who were attracted to me and what I valued in relationships has changed. It has evolved. And so I value different things now in my connections with people. So I've had a new address book. Okay, that was one thing that stuck with me. But the other thing, the spiritual thing, she said, you know what this process has done for me? What? It has, she said, you've helped me clear the debris. That was the word she used. You've cleared the debris so that I could connect with something larger than myself.
Yes. Yes.
I remember the day I sat back in my chair and I said, say that again and tell me more about that. So yeah, I think what I do in my work, but I know you do it as well, is we help people remove the blocks. Because we're spiritual beings having a human experience. In our human experience, we have all kinds of conflicts, and we disown parts of ourselves, and we wear masks and facades and all of that. And when we have these layers of impediments, don't you think it blocks our connection to spirit?
Absolutely.
So this client taught me that therapy removes the blocks, the debris, so that one can feel that open channel. And that
Yes. Yes. That's a wonderful way to look at it. Yeah.
when people feel that, they need us so much less, don't they? If at all.
Right. If at all. Right. I do think that that's the beauty of the marriage of, I'll call it psychology or
Yeah.
psychotherapy and spirituality, and a practice of, I think that when someone makes use of both, that is when we are fulfilling our greatest version of ourselves. I think that without getting rid of those blocks, clearing the debris, it's hard to, we may get, a connection through spirituality, but I think it's harder to maintain it because the debris is still going to show up, trip us up along the way.
And get in the way.
Yes. On the other hand, when we clear the debris and we do that work, then to have a practice, a spiritual practice and a mindset that, does help us see our place in this bigger,
Vast, unlimited.
vast other existence. I think that it's humbling. Like when I've been there, I have a problem, I'm upset, and nothing else comes into my purview, right? Nothing else. It's just about how I'm struggling and what's wrong. But with spirituality, to say, yes, all that's real, my pain is real. But if I plug it into something larger than myself, that allows me to not only tend to myself, but be a part of humanity, have compassion for others, and be more of a participant, not just in my life, but in the existence, in that web I referred to, that we're all part of.
To have a consciousness that
Yes.
we are part of.
Yeah.
We are part of. I asked you before we went to break, how do you handle those moments when you may feel helpless with a client? But over the break, I kind of expanded that question. What do you do when you have a client? Maybe you ask them in the beginning what their religious or spiritual beliefs are, and you have a client who says, "I really have no spiritual beliefs. Whether they identify as being agnostic or atheist, or they just never thought about it. They're not plugged in to anything. This is life, and when we die, we're in the ground and ashes to ashes. That whole thing." I found those moments are interesting when people either have a crisis of faith, gone through something, a death, a loss, a tremendous conflict or something, and they don't feel that God is with them.
Yeah.
However they define God, they don't feel God is with them. So the people for whom there is no other, there is no God, and the people for whom their connection with God has been lost by virtue of what they're going through. I found those moments are particularly challenging, right? Yeah. But it's, well, it's challenging. Now, it's challenging for two reasons, I think. If one has spiritual beliefs, you alluded to resilience before. If one has spiritual beliefs, one knows intrinsically that one is not alone, that there is inspiration. One needs only to go out. Again, you mentioned nature.
Yes.
One needs only to go outside and count the leaves on the trees, or look at the sand on the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. Look at a newborn baby. Think about the planets in the sky, to appreciate that there's something bigger at play.
Yeah. That's a starting point, I think, for some people who might say, well, I don't have any beliefs like that. I'm not a spiritual person. First of all, okay, someone is allowed to be in that space, but I still raise some questions. What gives you a sense of amazement or awe? Nature is a really good place for people to feel like they're not attaching it to any religious meaning or any higher power kind of idea. And yet, to encourage people to go out into nature, you could just sit and, as you said, look at the leaves, or how many grains of sand, the vastness of the ocean, just to look at the horizon and the vastness. What does that stir in you?
Yeah.
What does that do for you? And not always, but often people will have something that they experience or have experienced where that was like, yeah, that's just incredible or amazing. And so that's a starting point sometimes for spirituality. And that may be, that is a very real, I think there's a name for it, but I don't recall it, where nature is your spiritual practice, right? Your spiritual belief system. And it is pretty incredible when you think about, the tree and the grass and the flowers and me, that's all pretty amazing.
If we take for granted,
yes,
is nothing, right? It's nothing.
Right.
But if you say, go outside with the intentionality of looking at the tree and just simply contemplate,
yes.
How did this tree get here?
How does the tree get here? How does it know come spring?
How does it know
starts to bud? How does it know in fall into winter it dies off and goes into a hibernation? Like, how does it know that?
The miraculousness,
yes.
Right. And
so there's that. If I feel helpless to help to help a client, I will start I will back it up and go okay, let's look at it from a different vantage point. What amazes you? And maybe someone will say, oh, nothing. That might be a depressed person. And so that will sort of influence where I have to go. But was there ever? What did you do as a child? Did you,
Did you play in the dirt? Did you play with a worm?
Right.
Enough about me.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that. And you made reference to spirituality being about our values. And so that's another avenue to explore without calling it anything other than what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your values about life?
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes can be an entry point to, well, that's what gives me meaning.
Yeah.
Or,
And I hope our listeners can tell that we have not offered one single answer in this conversation, right? But I think what this conversation is about are some of the questions that we ask.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
very much so.
Right. Each of us contains the data, as I said before, the raw material. Each of us has lived a life, and it's our experiences and our doubts and maybe our self-criticism. I mean, all the things we have inside. But that's what the client brings to the table, and that's all they have to bring. Just just it's a come as you are, and all we ask is that they maintain a willingness,
A willingness. Absolutely. That's key. Yeah.
to see themselves differently, right?
Mhm,
And if they
mhm.
can't be willing, can they at least be willing to be
To be
willing?
willing, right? To get willing, right?
Yep.
To get there. Yeah.
So as we end this conversation, that it's so good to talk to you.
And I
Dawn.
do have one more point I want to make before we end the conversation. And that is about, knowing that we don't have to know all the answers as therapists, and knowing that sometimes the client is in a space that in that moment they can't move beyond.
Mhm.
And I don't know what to say. And I don't know what I've learned over the years, and it's been emphasized for me more recently, is the importance and value of presence.
Mhm.
So I can be here with you and we don't have to say anything,
That is so true.
but you can know that I am here with you.
That is so true.
And there's enormous beauty and value to that.
Mm.
And that's sometimes I have to remind myself that's really plenty.
It might not look to a fly on the wall
Right,
as a productive
right.
exchange, but it really is such a powerful thing
Mhm.
because it's without words. My essence wants to be with your essence.
Yes, it's an energetic
It's an energetic
melding, so to
Yes,
speak,
yes, yes.
connecting.
Yes.
As someone I know would say, it's the resonance field of all of us. That when we consciously are in it, that can be felt, and no words need to be
Mm.
said. So I just wanted to make that point.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. I think that's a good place to end. I wish I had another hour with you. Maybe you'll come back and we'll have a part two.
Maybe there'll be a part two. Yeah.
So for anyone listening who is contemplating talking with someone and who likes your gentleness and your intelligence and your approach and your style, how can someone get a hold of you?
They can email me.
Where-
My website is right now, it crashed, so it's being worked on, but they can certainly email me. And DCFRIED at iCloud.com.
So dcfried at iCloud.com.
Yes.
All
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And if people want to get a hold of me, Catherine at catherineduca.com anytime. And listen, I know you join me in saying it is the privilege of our lives.
It is an honor and a privilege to do the work.
To be let into the intimacies
Yes.
of people's lives and people's thoughts and people's struggles and people's wins and successes and
Yes.
victories.
Mhm.
It is, as you say, it is a pleasure and a privilege and an honor.
Yeah, very much so. That's a good note to end on.
So, Dawn, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining.
Thank you.
And you're the wind beneath my everything. Thank you.
Happy to be.
Great.
Happy
Great.
to be.
Okay. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. You honor both of us with your time and attention. And take good care of yourselves. Be well. And I'll meet you back here soon on this wonderful network, New Thought Media. I want to give a shout out and my deepest thanks to our producer, Reverend Michael Mangus. Reverend Mangus, thank you so very much for everything you do behind the scenes to make this thing come off. Take care, everybody. See you soon. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? Be well.